2 free throws for 60. A 60-point game for Kobe Bryant. What a performance. What an exit for number 24. You couldn't have written this. 45-50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
Step back. Walker. Cardiac Kemba does it again. UConn wins at the buzzer.
Leading by 3 as Boone hits it to deep left. That might send the Yankees to the World Series. Oh, the hero in Game 7.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 4th episode of the Aspire Podcast, where we aspire to inspire you. I'm your host, Tyrese B, and we have another special guest today. He is a former Division II football player and is currently a chief analyst and tight end special team assistant at the University of Akron. Welcome, Joshua DePasquale. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good myself, man. I cannot complain. So, great. So I always start off this episode asking my guests about their upbringing. So where are you from, man?
I'm originally from the Pittsburgh area.
Man, I know that's pretty cold out there. Pittsburgh is a pretty cold city. So how is the weather? Is it the weather always cold up there, or how is that?
Weather's about the same in Akron too. It's only about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So, it's definitely a little cooler than where you're at. That's for sure.
Definitely, for sure. So, how's your childhood, man? What do you remember most about that time?
I grew up playing baseball a lot. I didn't get into football actually until high school, so that was something that I kind of picked up later on. But always had an interest in sports, and growing up in Pittsburgh, I was definitely a big fan of the Steelers and the Pirates and the Penguins. Never was that much into hockey though, but I was definitely a huge fan of the Steelers growing up. Watched Pitt Panthers growing up a lot too, and West Virginia Mountaineers too, whether that was college football or college basketball. So those are kind of the teams I grew up with. Now I just tend to root for anywhere that I'm close with any of the coaches or players. I tend to root for those programs, and obviously first and foremost, rooting for my program, trying to make it the best that I can.
Man, it sounds great. I know that's crazy. I was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan growing up. I was a big fan of their days, especially when they went to the Super Bowl, and when they played the Arizona Cardinals. That was one of my favorite teams of the Steelers. So I just want to know, who was your favorite player on that team, or just in the Steelers?
I would say growing up, my favorite ones to watch were Troy Polamalu and Hines Ward, definitely. I actually like Charlie Batch a lot, the backup quarterback, but I like Big Ben too. My two favorites were definitely Ward and Polamalu. I liked a lot of Heath Miller and Alan Faneca as well. Those were Casey Hampton. Those were all my favorites.
Okay, that's a good list. Sir. I can agree with that. So I just also want to ask you, what was your favorite part of your childhood? Middle school, high school, elementary school. What was your favorite part?
High school really exposed me to a lot of different opportunities. That's where I started playing football, and that's become essentially my whole life. So I think I would be mostly saying high school would be the part that really shaped me. Before that, middle school and elementary school, those days were fun, and that's when I started getting into sports as far as playing baseball, and then starting to do a little bit of track and field as well in middle school. So, I'd say they all definitely played their part, but high school is definitely the part that drove me towards football.
Okay, great. So you said that you grew up watching, a lot of sports. As you say, you're a big fan of a lot of Pittsburgh teams, baseball, football, and hockey. But I just want to know, when did you get your first start in the sports? Was it football? Was it another sport? What was your first sport that you played?
I started playing baseball. I started with t-ball from age 3 all the way up until my sophomore year of high school. I was playing baseball.
Okay. And would you say that well, baseball is your first love or football?
I'd say I liked baseball, but I love football.
Okay.
Football is
Okay.
definitely my first love.
Well, your football career, when did you decide to put the pads on? Or well, you probably already said it, but when did you decide to put the pads on?
It was high school. My little brother was actually playing football for his first time in like first or second grade. He played one season of football when he was young, and it was at that point I was in high school, and I started really talking to my friends about it, and just kind of made the decision like, I want to try football. It's something that I've always been into, not nearly to the level I am now, but it's something that's always interested me. I started playing. I was really undersized at the time. I was playing linebacker at only about 160 pounds, playing outside linebacker. At that point, I went up to IUP, a D2 school, to walk on. I walked on there, and it was, I had actually learned how to punt the ball because I wasn't skilled enough to play linebacker or safety at that level. So, I started punting, and then I walked on there, and it was I wasn't sure what it was going to look like in terms of playing time. I wasn't really going to be able to play. They definitely have better punters there. So I transferred down to a D3, Waynesburg University, and then I played some tight end there as well, as I was punting. And then once I got my punting skills up a little bit, I ended up transferring to Notre Dame College, a Division II in Cleveland, Ohio. And at that point, the NCAA had a little bit of an issue with me transferring up as far as eligibility goes. So my senior year, which was last year, I started coaching at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, IUP, the first school I was at. I went back there because I made good connections. I liked the program, and I worked with the offensive line and running backs and tight ends, all as an assistant for each of those positions, and was also the director of analytics there, and did some other jobs as well, and took a job actually at a JUCO football program, but for certain reasons I had to leave that behind, and I ended up making a good connection with my current boss here at Akron, and I'm really, really grateful for that opportunity, and for the fact that special teams coordinator and tight ends coach have also given me plenty to do, and the way I've been accepted here by the position coaches, the coordinators, and the head coach, just being able to get all the opportunities I've been looking for.
Man, that sounds great, man. That sounds great. That's a crazy journey to get to where you're at, man. I want to go more in depth into, your story. But first, before I go into your coach career, I want to talk about high school. So, like you said, you played football in high school. I want to know, how far did your teams go? Did your teams go to state by any chance?
My team made the playoffs. We lost to a very skilled McKeesport team, which is on the east side of Pittsburgh. Very skilled team, and their star player was Khalid Hudson, who ended up going to Michigan as a linebacker. He played running back and linebacker in high school, and then I believe that he's playing on Sundays now in Washington.
Oh man, that's crazy. I mean, it's just cool to see, your teammates and former people that you play with, make it, I know you just said you talked about your D3 and D2 days, so I want you to let's start at D3. How was that experience, playing? For you tell the listeners that 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 really don't necessarily know about D3 football, could you explain to them how it is different from the other divisions?
The biggest difference between D3 and any other level of football is that there is no athletic aid given to D3, so there's no any type of scholarships for athletics given to Division 3 athletes. They're pretty much playing just because they want to keep their career going, and they want to have a collegiate career. And even at that point, there's still a lot of Division 3 people who get opportunities at the pros. I think the biggest name uh, current NFL player that I can think of is Pierre Garcon, who played at Mount Union. So, I mean, he was a Division 3 player as well. There have been some other ones that I could name, but they're not as big of names as Pierre Garcon. Our head coach here actually played at Division 3, John Carroll, and ended up being backup quarterback behind Peyton Manning for several years in the league. So, there's a lot of while it's not the highest level of football, and it's not offering athletic scholarships, there's still a whole lot of skill that can come out of D3 football.
Man, that's crazy. I didn't know all about the aid situation. I thought y'all, got the same aid as, other conferences did.
Yeah, no athletic scholarships at the D3 level. They start at D2, and that's kind of specific to each school. And then once you get to both of the Division 1 subdivisions, it's mandated across the board the amount of scholarships you're allowed to give.
So how did you pay for school? If you don't mind me asking, did you have to work? Did you have scholarships that they give out or like financial aid?
So I had some scholarships. It was mostly financial aid. It was mostly student loans.
I was to say I know it's not something that a high school player wants. So which leads me going into this question: if you had any advice for any high school players that are seniors right now, coming into a D3 school.
I would tell them that you definitely have certain things to think about that you're already thinking about, like playing time or the finances. But something I didn't realize at first is the football program that you're with, especially if you're looking for a career in football. The program that you're with can really be made to mold great coaches and great GMs and anything throughout sports. So I know the head man here played and was the head coach at John Carroll. Most of the GAs around our staff and some of the quality control, even position coaches and some coordinators all have tied to John Carroll. So, there's places like that. That's the specific one, obviously, based on where I'm at. But there's places like that where you're not only giving yourself the best next 4 years, you're already putting yourself in position just by where you're at to be able to keep it going, and be successful in your entire life.
Man, that was great advice, man. I hope, the listeners got some of that, and hopefully, they can use it. So let's go into your D2 career. Like you said, I think you said that you didn't play that much. So I just want to know, can you go into more into depth about that?
Yeah, so I transferred in the spring semester of my junior year, and that was the only semester I ended up spending there because of not being eligible with the NCAA due to transferring multiple times. Uh, you know, it was a great program to be a part of. A lot of that staff is now at Lenore-Ryan, which is another D2 powerhouse, and that one's located, I believe, in North Carolina. Uh, they're all doing pretty well down there. They're not playing right now because of COVID, but they're having a great program build up there, from what was already a pretty storied program. And Notre Dame College still has some of the coaches that were there. They brought in some new ones, and I think those are both great programs. And I think playing at Notre Dame College gave me a nice perspective. It was also my first time living in Ohio. It was a good experience overall. Despite my short time there, I had a whole lot of fun there.
Okay, sounds great. So going into your time at Notre Dame College, how was that competition level? Did you see a difference? Was it about the same?
I would say that there was definitely a difference. Now, this was honestly Notre Dame College could compete at the FCS level if they wanted to. In my opinion, they have, as far as I know, they have a good number of scholarships. I'm not sure the exact amount, and they're well coached and they're skilled. So I think that they're the type of program that could really compete even if they moved up to the next level, if they ever chose to do that. So with that preface being said, I would say there was definitely a level of difference in competition. I didn't even play tight end anymore once I moved up to D2 because I was 6 foot and about 190 pounds at the time. Well, maybe 6'1" and 190 pounds. And, I was still very undersized compared to all the other guys. And I just wanted to focus on my punting. And even with that, there was a lot of difference between the skill level and the depth at all of the specialist positions and really every position across the board. There was an occasional player at Waynesburg that would have been a good player at Notre Dame College, but overall, just because of the difference in skill level and scholarship money to be given out between those two divisions, it definitely does create a difference in skill and in size.
Okay. That's what I was kind of expecting, because like you said, as you said, it's more a lot of things to think about, more recruiting, more scholarship possibilities, things such of that nature. So how is the playoff situation, when you were at Notre Dame College? You said they were a powerhouse. Did you guys happen to, make a run by any chance?
I was there in the spring after they won their conference the year before. So after the spring game, everybody that was on that team got a ring. Unfortunately, I did not, but it was still cool. It was still cool to be a part of such a good program. Yeah, they went to the NCAA Final Four the year before I was there, and then it was at that point that I started my coaching career at IUP. And when I was there, we did go to the NCAA Division II playoffs, and we were number 2 in our division, only second to a team that ended up being, I believe, a semifinalist for Division II champs.
Man, that's crazy. They should have gave you a ring, man. They should have gave you a ring.
I mean, honestly, I've never gotten a ring in my 4 or 5 seasons. Well, it's been more than that now. My probably 6 seasons. I've never gotten a ring in that amount of time. So, I'd like to earn my first one, I guess.
Man, I know those rings are a big deal, especially when you get up to that college level. I mean, everybody that plays, football wants a ring.
I appreciate that, and yeah, I like to think it's coming soon as well.
All right, so Joshua, let's go into your coaching career. Can you tell what IUP is for listeners that don't know?
IUP is called Indiana University of Pennsylvania, so it's in a town called Indiana, PA. It's a top D2 program. It's got a really storied history as a Division II program. They go to the playoffs. They've been there almost every year. I'd say since I left high school, they've had 4 seasons, and I think 3 of them have gone to the playoffs. Once they won their super region and conference, so they went to the national semifinals that year. And that was a team that had a really nice run. So that it's a great football program to be a part of. Very storied, a lot of successful NFL coaches, successful college coaches have been a product of that program.
Okay. So, Joshua, how many years were you there?
I did the 1 year coaching there. I did my senior year, and I completed my degree. But before I walked on there, like I said, that was where I was at first. Before I walked on there, I actually started off as a student manager, and that's how I made the connections there that kind of allowed me to get my first real coaching job that was kind of like real coaches hours. I had helped out with my high school team over a summer while I was still playing, and I would coach the specialists while I was there and kind of help out with whatever else they needed help with. But getting to IUP for that one season, that was really my first real coaching job, I'd say.
So now you talked about how you got your job right now, where if the y'all listeners don't know, he's currently, like I said before, he's a chief analyst and a special teams and a tight end assistant at the University of Akron. So could you tell us how did you get that job, or how did that materialize?
Well, I had written a few articles on analytics, and I had started, trying to build a network. And the director of analytics, my boss here, he is the one that kind of took interest in the work that I had sent him, and said, he'd like me to join his staff. I looked at a couple other programs, but I made the decision that Akron is where I wanted to be. I had a couple other, whether they were job offers or offers that were probably gonna end up on the table. I decided that the Akron is where I really wanted to be, and I think I made a great decision with it.
That sounds great. So what made you want to write about football analytics?
I would say I kind of, when I created some formulas, some analytical systems, I would say that first of all, I knew it could help me moving up in my career to be able to kind of demonstrate the knowledge that I had put together. And at that point, I hadn't actually used any of this in application, because I had just started doing it this spring. We started kind of using it in application here now at Akron to a certain extent. But, when I was back then, I just kind of wanted to get my name out there as someone who has that level of credibility and skill in analytics. And I also wanted to be able to share some of my formulas and ideas, just for people to be able to use it and to kind of do my little part in helping make the game a little better and a little more analytical.
Oh man, that's great. Especially now going into 2020, I think analytics is one of the biggest things that, a lot of not just even college, but a lot of high school programs and pro programs have used it. Analytics has, been broad over many of sports. I think that's a pretty big deal that you're talking about.
It definitely is. And I really appreciate when people of all kinds, whether it's fans, journalists like you, whatever it may be, when they appreciate the use of analytics. And here at Akron, I've been able to kind of demonstrate my value as far as that stuff goes. And in turn, because I've been able to do that, they've been really great about kind of whether it's giving me input or using the knowledge that I've tried to pass to them. They've been really great about kind of giving me that role here.
Okay. Great. So Joshua, a lot of teams this year they didn't participate. At the start of the season, they eased their way in. Of course, the four conferences that decided to not play at the start of the year were the MAC, Mountain West Conference, and I believe the Big Ten. So, and the Pac-12 as well. So a lot of conferences didn't want to play this year, but of course, y'all just recently played. I think starting this month. Was it last month? When did y'all start playing?
November 4th was the kickoff for all 12 teams in the MAC. We played crossover games. East Division played the West Division. And then yesterday, 3 games were played. I believe all the East Division. And then tonight, 3 games are being played, all the West Division. And there's going to be 6 total games, being Wednesdays for week 1, Tuesday and Wednesday for week 2, Tuesday and Wednesday for week 3, and then Saturdays for the rest of the season. So we went really heavy on the midweek MACtion this year. Got 3 games, 2 of which have been played already for us. In the middle of the week, we get a week and a half to kind of prepare for week 4, and then we get the rest are Saturday games, just like the rest of college football.
Man, that's great, man. That's good to see, the MAC back in action, or you could say good to see the MACtion back. But going back to the COVID situation, like you said, you guys just started this month. How is the team morale, for this season, being able to play?
I think there was a lot of excitement. At first we were going to play in the spring when they first canceled it, but then the other conferences started bringing football back, and then our conference made the decision to. And I think overall, most of us were just grateful for the opportunity. I know I was a little upset it was only 6 games, but I mean, from seeing the players and coaches at other levels, that aren't at the top level of college football, which is the FBS, that they don't get to play. I've kind of become grateful for the fact that we get to play it all, even if it's only 6 or 7 games, depending on if you make the conference championship.
So you're saying in total that you only will have possibly 8 games played?
Well, we have 6 regular season games, and then we have a possibility at a conference championship and a bowl game, but they only scheduled 6 games for each team.
Well, like you said, that's kind of tough. I feel like y'all guys should have gotten more because, a lot of these other conferences are playing, either 11 games or, way more than, just 8 games or 6 or 7 games, So, but then again, I understand it because, a lot of teams, of course, a lot of players this year have gotten COVID, especially with my school, UNT. I think we canceled our last 3 games because of COVID. So it's been pretty crazy time, but, it's just good to see college football back this year in general.
Right. I definitely agree.
So Joshua, what do you think about, your team's chances this year? Right now, of course, y'all have had, 2 games so far, sitting at 0-2 right now. But however, last game was pretty competitive. So let me ask you, what do you think your team needs to do, to pull off that win next week?
I'm just really looking forward to the way we continue to grow. It's even seeing from week 1 to week 2, the way we were able to kind of start hanging in there and start being that team that can compete with any team in the conference. Ohio was projected, as well as Western Michigan. They were both projected to be 2 of the top teams in the conference, and we really hung in there with Ohio this week. And I think all we need to do is just put the pieces together a little bit more. And at that point, I think we can beat anyone in this conference because I've seen that we can hang with the best teams. I think we could beat anybody if we can finalize the recipe.
Sounds like a great plan, man. Hopefully, you guys can pull off the win next week. Like you said, you guys play Kent State next week, which is a rival of y'all's. Very pivotal game for y'all as well since y'all 0-2. Can you tell the listeners when and where you can watch that game?
I actually haven't seen the TV schedule for that game. I know we were on CBS Sports Network this week, but the Kent State game, I believe it'll be Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 17th.
Well, guys, you heard it here first. I definitely think you guys should catch that game. Definitely be a big rivalry game. Kent State, Akron, when they both play, have been pretty close games. So hopefully we'll see a good one next Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely hope so. Hopefully we can come home with the wagon wheel this year.
Yes, sir. So with the COVID situation, are fans coming to the game still, or how's that working out?
So it's all specific to the host team. The host team has to, in our conference, provide tickets for the same amount of tickets for each player or coach for the home or away team. So what we do at Akron is we provide 4 tickets for the family or friends of each player or coach if they so choose to take advantage of all 4 of those tickets. As far as the road games go, I only know about the teams we're playing. I know Kent State and Buffalo are not allowing fans at all. Ohio allowed 2 fans per player or coach.
Well, that's not a lot of fans, but hey, you got to take what you can get at times like these. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not the same atmosphere. It feels a lot more like in D2 when we were playing in front of closer to 5,000 people than maybe 25,000, but
right.
It's still a great thing to be able to play football at all. And that's kind of what I've learned this year is you can't take football for granted. So you got to just take what you can get. I mean, the fans and stuff, the atmosphere, that's an added bonus. The football part is the part I really love.
Right. I agree. Like you said, we're in tough times, with the COVID situation, next season, by the time August or September comes around, things will be at full capacity once again, we'll actually have fans, a whole stadium full of fans, but only time will tell with the COVID situation. So hopefully, I pray for the best.
Yeah, me too. Fingers crossed. Prayers up.
So Joshua, what are your future endeavors with this coaching situation? Right now you're, like you said, you work with the tight ends and the special teams, as an assistant. Are you looking to possibly, become an actual coach for a team by any chance?
I definitely have a goal to move up first in analytics and then being able to kind of work with a bigger position group. I'd like to coach an offensive line one day, and I'd like to kind of delegate my analytics duties until I can kind of have people doing that stuff for me, and they're able to do it to the level I want, because obviously as an analyst I take the analytics very seriously. So it's something that I want to use when I'm calling plays of an offensive line, and eventually be a head coach.
So as of right now, you're a chief analyst and you are assistant for the tight ends and the special teams. So what are your future endeavors in this, in this coaching industry? What do you want to be? What is your end goal?
I'd like to continue to move up in analytics and in coaching, and eventually be able to use my own analytics and some analytics that I've been able to pass down, and then be able to move up into coaching an offensive line one day, calling plays, and eventually I'd like to be a head coach, but I'm not sure how much of a rush I have there. I think I'd like to enjoy my time as an offensive coordinator first, whenever that time may come.
Well, man, I wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors, man. I think, hopefully, you could possibly, move up in the coaching world. So,
Yeah, it's definitely that would definitely be the goal, and I appreciate all that.
so going into football analytics, like you talked before, like I said, a lot about analytics. Have you ever thought about, doing your own website by any chance? Or, so have you ever thought about doing something like that?
I think what I've done so far as like writing articles about it, and like occasionally giving a presentation on it, or a clinic, or whatever it may be, I think that's as far as I would want to go with that, because a lot of the applied analytics stuff, we like to keep kind of close to the belt, especially, I actually had kind of an idea to kind of have a joint effort between all analysts at the NCAA, and to be able to just kind of pull all our data together and be able to advance the game forward. But unfortunately, it's we don't want to give away too much information about our own teams, so that's kind of what stifles that, and what would kind of stifle being able to talk about this like every week. I definitely think that there's some things that I would want to put into the game to just see it improve overall, and I think what I've done so far is kind of the appropriate amount for what we do overall.
No, that's understandable. You don't want nobody to get a, advantage on your team. You definitely don't want to, a spygate like how the Patriots did. So,
Right.
all right, Josh. So I wanted to do something new with this podcast. I think I want to start off with you. I think because of your broad football career. So I want to ask this question. What was the craziest experience, or the greatest or funnest experience that you've ever had, in the sport of football?
Oh man, I've definitely had a lot of fun experiences, at IUP with the amount of games we won last year. I really liked winning our rivalry game. I've had plenty of fun times as far as winning those games goes, and then this year, as far as really getting into really grinding as much as I can, and working however long it takes a week, maybe 80, 90 hours a week. I like all that type of stuff, and I had fun experiences in my playing career too. As far as when I was playing at Waynesburg, being able to get a couple starts there was a really fun time for me. And I have plenty of fond memories about those games that I started in, and about any of the games I played in. And I mean, right now, there's continuing to build memories as far as my coaching career goes, which is a pretty young coaching career, but plenty of different things that went on last year that have definitely spiced it up.
Man, I hear you, man. It's only the beginning, so I know this chapter is definitely not closed. You got a whole long of a career to go. So hopefully, who knows, maybe in the next 10 years, you might be a head coach in the league or something. And maybe you could possibly hop on the podcast again. So you never know.
Definitely.
All right. as a football analytics guy, I want to just talk about the NFL for a second. Who do you think is the best player in the league? And also, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl this year?
Well, I mean, I like the Steelers. I grew up in Pittsburgh, so I have to say I'd like to see the Steelers win it this year. As far as the best player in the league goes, I think that at that certain level, there are so many factors that go into a best player, and you know, there's a lot more discrepancy between skill level when you look at the lower levels of football. So if you're looking at high school football, there's your best player and worst player are going to be light years apart in skill level. But in pro football, I mean, you really have to be good to even make a practice squad in the league. You have to be a great football player. But, all that being said, and if I were just to go with my personal opinion, I really like Aaron Donald. The defensive tackle, he played for Pitt, so I liked watching him at Pitt. And then being with the Rams, he's just been kind of a force forever with them, and he's one of the most athletic and physically fit defensive tackles that you'll see in the game. So, I think that he would definitely be my choice for it.
Man, those are good answers. Of course, I can't be mad with the Steelers, especially, of course, they're undefeated right now, even though they almost got beat by, the Cowgirls last week. So, but I'm glad y'all pulled it off. So I think maybe it might be Aaron Rodgers' year. I got a feeling that the Packers might, pull it off. He could get his second ring. Um, as for best players wise, I would agree with Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is insane.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, to be able to have that level of dominance in professional football, I mean, that's just something crazy. And that's something you need to work hours and hours for, not just in the mental side of football and learning the playbook, but not even the physical side as well, but the recovery side too, the everything you need to know about football. You put it all together, and I mean, you're looking at it's more than a full-time job. It's incredible how much work and how much physical gift it takes to be a force in the NFL like that, like Aaron Donald.
Definitely. I mean, the work doesn't come easy. Nothing comes easy, especially when you get to the league. So the fact that, his abilities and, his work ethic translated so perfectly to the NFL, it makes sense why he's probably one of the best defensive tackles that I've seen. So once again, Josh, I want to say thank you for coming on the show once again. I appreciate you for, deciding to hop on the podcast. I want you to take this time to talk about, your future endeavors, where to follow you at on Twitter or social media.
Well, all right. So let's start by you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at coach_J_D. Um, as far as my future endeavors, like we said, I'd definitely be interested in becoming an offensive line coach, eventually an OC, and a head coach one day. And as far as for people getting into the game and coaching, it's not going to be easy. And even when you do start like breaking in to really into coaching, like I'm like the point I'm at, you're still going to have to work extremely, extremely hard, maybe even harder than you did in the past. And uh you need to, I'd say, you always want to network. And that's one of the most important things in this field. You got to know people. You got to, because this profession is all performance based. You need to be able uh, to create the best product on the field that you can as a coach. So it makes sense that people will want people they know and that they can count on to be the ones making their team better. there's some other factors that go into it too. I've also written an article on some pieces of advice for being a young coach that you can find on my Twitter somewhere on there, or you can look on the Football Coaches Forum. It's 10 different things, but I mean, the main takeaways are you got to be willing to do the dirty work. You got to be networking, working extremely hard, and you've got to be able to do something to separate yourself that makes you the best at what you do. And that's what I think analytics is for me. I'll run like really complicated efficiency studies and get them done in like 20 minutes like I did this morning because it needed done in a certain amount of time. And I don't I couldn't call plays as well as anyone on our staff, and I probably don't know the techniques as well as anyone with their specific position, but that's the value I bring, is that I do that. I do the studies, I do the research, I do the analytics better than anyone, almost anyone else that's doing it. So, that's where I shine, and I think it's definitely important to find your place, that you can stand out as a young coach, and you got to be willing to admit that that's not going to be with actually coaching a position, or with you got to be willing to adapt and find the thing that you can be great at.
Well, y'all, that's the end of the podcast. I want to thank Coach Joshua for coming on and blessing the podcast, with his experience and expertise in, football. And I also want to thank you guys, the listeners, for tuning in, and supporting us. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast for future episodes. We have a new episode coming out in the next 2 weeks. But until then, stay safe and stay inspired.